The original Oxenfree was a unique experience with the supernatural that left players to stew with whatever ending they got for the past couple years. Would this sequel be able to surpass the story from the original? Let's find out. Oxenfree 2 is a point-and-click game that does a great job at slowly unraveling the story so that it's easy to follow along. We play as Riley, a woman that has returned to her old hometown of Kamina for a research job to investigate some abnormal radio signals. Before we start investigating what's going on, we are reunited with a childhood friend named Jacob. The back and forth dialogue between Riley and Jacob helped make the game interesting, because for most of the game you're walking back and forth across the entire map, so there's a lot of opportunity for conversations. The dialogue options give you the ability to create your own version of Riley, as the choices vary between positive, negative, and neutral comments. Just like the original game, your dialogue choices matter, as what you choose to say affects what happens at the end of the game. Putting it simply, in order to collect the data to figure out what's going on with the radio interference, we have to place 4 radio transmitters at high points across the map. It seems simple, but along the way you experience many supernatural phenomenons, all slowly revealing what's going on within the story. Once you finally reach the peak of an area and place a transmitter, it feels like you earned it, a worthwhile reward for walking all the way there. If there's one area where this game lacks compared to the first, it's the supporting characters. Outside of Riley and Jacob, I didn't care about what happened to any of the other characters. Because of this, the dialogue options that I picked reflected how I felt about those specific characters. For example, there's a character named Olivia that you meet later in the game, and based on how she treats Riley affected my decisions towards the end of the game. While you're on the journey to place all the transmitters, there are plenty of twists and turns that keep you engaged so you don't get bored of just walking from place to place. By the time you reach the final section of the game, you have a clear picture of what's going on and how big the stakes really are. Regardless, the choice always remains in Riley's hands, making you really feel the effects of your decisions. When everything is said and done, the story is wrapped up nicely, ending this game in a way that most players will be satisfied. But of course, just like the first game, there's multiple endings. After finishing the game, I read what each of these endings are, and it's clear that there is one that seems like it's the happiest ending. If you manage to get the happy ending, which is pretty easy to get, I think everybody gets what they wanted. On the other hand, if you get one of the other endings, then your opinion on the game is probably different than mine. There isn't much to the gameplay for this game, as at its core it's still a point-and-click game. As I mentioned earlier, to go across the map you walk from place to place, jumping across gaps and climbing up ledges, all to reach the peak of one area. Just like before, you have access to your radio, which you use to tune to certain frequencies to then fight against the supernatural and progress the story. You also have a walkie with different channels so you can communicate with other people who aren't in the same area. I don't believe this was in the first game, but a new mechanic are these puzzles that require you to mold out a shape from a frequency and line it up to an original shape. These aren't hard, as you just move the dials by rotating your analog sticks in all 4 directions to create the shape and then align it. There isn't a lot of these, so completing these puzzles never feels like an inconvenience. The map was larger than I expected, as there were many places that you could visit that are different elevations across the area. As you progress, you visit different buildings that require you to find items that are important and required to move forward to the next area. Within each place, there's interactable objects that can be used to perform some sort of action that will help you in the game. For example, you visit Jacob's cabin, and while searching for a way in, you find a ladder outside. You can pick up this ladder and bring it to the rooftop and then climb up it to get into the cabin. Details like this make a difference and add a little spice to the gameplay loop for these type of point-and-click games. The gameplay loop for Oxenfree 2 doesn't get repetitive even though you're doing the same thing over and over. The devs did a great job at implementing different puzzles and set pieces to keep you on your toes so that you don't get bored as you uncover the story. Too many times you play these story-based games and they fail to keep your attention span because it's just non-stop dialogue with nothing interesting happening to keep you entertained. The aesthetic of this game is eye-catching and distinct, helping to create an atmosphere that makes you feel like you're in the town. Combined with the OST, this game is just relaxing to play, and is a great game to enjoy if you're trying to wind down after a long day. With a solid story that has plenty of surprises to keep you hooked, Oxenfree 2 is a worthy successor to the first game. With that being said, I'm going to give this game an 8.5 out of 10. This title is a great sequel and connects everything back to the first, bringing everything full circle. Since this game is cheap, I recommend giving this game a try if you're in the mood for a story game that you can beat in a day or two. What did you think about Oxenfree 2? Did you like this one more than the first? Let me know all that and more in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.